Why, hello, and thank you for joining us. Would like to introduce myself. My name is Narelle, and very soon I'll be introducing a very special guest. Jim Marini, there you are. Hello, hi.
Hello, Darrell. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Jim. Now, Jim, whereabouts in the world are you calling in from?
I am based in Boston, Massachusetts. Yes, home of
Nice.
the New England Patriots, the football team. I don't know if any folks there in Australia fans of the Patriots, but yep, that's where I'm located.
Oh, wow. Well, that's awesome. So, Jim, it must be pretty late for you. So I hope that you've had a coffee in time for this.
I did, but although Norel, I will say not as good as the coffee in Australia. My favorite iced coffee. What's the name of that? With the iced coffee with the ice cream in it,
Yeah,
right?
you got it. It's a nice coffee, and I think when it comes with an ice cream, you get excited every time, pretending you didn't know it was really coming with ice cream.
That's right.
I'm on to you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think Jim, thank you again for joining us, and I believe that we've got quite a number of attendees here listening to finding out about some of the most trending rail vacations that we can provide for them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. And folks, thank you all so much. I hope you enjoy the American accent as much as I enjoy the Australian accent. So we will keep today's presentation short and sweet. So I did want to mention as I go through today's presentation on the right-hand side of your screen, everyone, any questions that you may have, please feel free to type those away and Norel and I will save time at the end to answer any questions that you have. I did also want to mention the phone number down in the bottom right hand corner. We have an office right there in Sydney. So we are open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. local Sydney time. So definitely feel free to give us a ring and we'll help you with any of these exciting trips. So who is Railbookers and Amtrak Vacations? Folks, we are part of the Yankee Leisure Group family of brands. And today's presentation is scheduled to be about 30 to 45 minutes or so, give or take, with questions. I'm going to touch on to some of the European rail holidays that have been trending and certainly available to book as of now for the fall of this year or even next year. Then from there, I'll move on to Canada as well as right here in America, where I am located, as I mentioned, in the Boston area. So first and foremost, why do so many travelers love traveling with rail bookers? Well, if you look up at the top, folks, you can pay in Australian dollars, which is fantastic. So all pricing in Australian dollars. You can book up to 24 months in advance, which is so fantastic. So literally, if you're thinking of the fall of 2021, you just phone our local Sydney office or contact your local travel advisor or travel agent who can help you book any of our exciting trips. We have a flexible booking policy, which I'm going to touch on in just a minute. Do you know when you phone us, the average hold time for you or your local travel advisor is 3 seconds. So be ready to be helped because we're ready to help you. Also, bucket list experiences. I can't tell you how many times I've had the pleasure of traveling around the world, and really, rail holidays is always something high with folks' wish list and their bucket list. Freedom and flexibility. You're going to hear a little bit more about this as I go through today's presentation. Many of these trains depart daily, multiple times a day throughout the world. Freedom and flexibility, again, because you also can get up, walk around, stretch your legs. It is the scenic way to travel. So, as I was mentioning during our presentation earlier today with Narelle and I, obviously, when we all fly, we know what the clouds look like. They're all the same in the world, right? Versus seeing the true beauty throughout Europe, Canada, America, as well as around the world. As I mentioned again, you can get up, walk around, and any rail holiday that I highlight here today on our website, in our brochures, any of them can be customized. So we find the perfect holiday at the perfect price for each and every one of you. Now, the nice thing is when you travel with Rail Bookers, we have 24-hour support from all our offices. So obviously, not only at our local Sydney office, right where Norel is located in the team, but also in the Boston area, in Beverly, Massachusetts, in Southern California, London, and most recently in Toronto, Canada. Now, here's something that we're excited to announce. This is our new rebooking and cancellation policy. So any new reservations can change their travel dates or cancel your rail holiday up until 5 days prior to departure, folks. And here's the best part, without incurring any change or cancellation fees, which is fantastic. So really peace of mind. Also, if any of you that are joining us, and as Narelle said, we have a fantastic audience here this afternoon and this morning, depending on where you're located in Australia, New Zealand. Any existing reservations can be rescheduled up to 5 days prior to departure without incurring any change or cancellation fees. So the first part I wanted to start out with is, as I mentioned, Europe. Now, if you look at this map, everyone, all those different colorful lines, those represent all the different train lines throughout Europe. And here's what I always say, none of the train lines actually talk to each other. Many of them obviously are in different countries. They have different policies, procedures. When you book through Railbookers and Amtrak Vacations right through our local Sydney office or through your local travel advisor who books with us, we take the mystery out of rail travel. And not only do we book all the trains for you, we book hotels, sightseeing tours, meals, activities. We have packages all put together, but again, any of them can be customized, and I'll touch on to those in a minute. Now, how are we able to book 2 years in advance? Folks, we have direct partnerships with some of the major rail operators, in fact, most of them throughout the world. So as you can see here, whether it's Renfe in Spain, Via Rail, which I'll touch on in a little bit in Canada, Amtrak, of course, here in America, we travel all over. And again, besides taking care of the train, we take care of hotels, sightseeing activities. By the way, hotels, you also get to choose between 3, 4, and 5 star, 3, 4, and 5 diamond hotels. So again, depending on what type of accommodations you prefer. We also take care of booking ferries, excursions, and even some overnight rail journeys as well. What I always love, though, when it comes to any of our packages, many of the sites and activities and tours that we include allow you to skip the line, save yourself time instead of being in these long lines and just waiting along with the general public, because we're sending thousands upon thousands of people all over the world at all times. We can be able to provide these great values for each and every one of you. So rail travel, here's what you need to know. Well, first and foremost, when you book through Railbookers, we can book all different categories of seating on board the trains. So as an example, in Europe, Eurostar, well, that's one of the high-speed trains, right? Now, here's something fun and interesting. Do you know some of the high-speed trains in Europe? They actually go over 320 kilometers per hour, folks. Over 320 kilometers per hour. But we also book some of those most iconic scenic trains, such as Glacier Express, right? So all different trains throughout not only Europe but around the world, as well as different categories. So as an example, a lot of the Europeans, when they travel on the trains throughout Europe, they're traveling in standard class, which is the main seating on board the trains. What we find is all of our Australian and New Zealanders who travel on all of our trips, especially in Europe, they're booking into business or first class. So that's the first suggestion I would have for all of you joining Narelle and I here today, is definitely consider booking into business or first class. And I'm going to tell you why, for a few reasons. First off, there's less people in those classes of service on board the train, okay? Typically, people that are in business or first class on board a lot of the European trains, they are tourists. They're Australians, Americans, Canadians traveling into Europe. There's extra leg room. The seats are larger. There's more space for your luggage. Typically, there's attendants in business or first class. In some cases, meals are included or available at an additional charge. All right, so keep that in mind. Also, I heard a great line years ago from one of our travelers who was looking to travel with her and her husband, and she said, it's worth the extra investment to upgrade to business or first because I know it's going to create that much more of a memorable experience. You see, a lot of times people won't remember what they spent when they have that much greater of an experience. And obviously, traveling from Australia or New Zealand, wherever you're located, it's going to be certainly a trip of a lifetime, and we want to make sure you have the best experience possible. Now, the nice part is, besides booking some of those high-speed trains throughout Europe and around the world, we also can book some of those luxury rail lines, such as the Venice Simplon Orient Express, the Gone, Blue Train, right? Just to name a few. Of course, Rocky Mountain Air. We're truly a one-stop shop when it comes to booking pretty much your entire packages, your entire rail holidays, which is nice. Now, we have a slogan here, and that is, we know because we go. You see, here's a nice collage of some of our rail experts, and these are some of the same folks that work out of our Sydney office. They get to travel on 1 to 2 trips a year themselves, so not only are they very familiar and really well versed in the destinations, but more importantly, the different train lines, the different train systems. And I always use the example, are you looking to go on the Gothard Tunnel or the Gothard Pass? Are you looking for the fastest and shortest route, or are you looking for the most scenic route? You see, all throughout Europe and around the world, there's so many different variations and different train routes to take advantage of. Let me take you into some of the rail holidays, the top 7 that are really trending right here, right now. First off, Norway. Now, Norway, one of my favorite countries in the world. Norway actually has the longest tunnel, rather, in the world, and it actually is home to where the Nobel Peace Prize is awarded every year. But more importantly, it's also where you get a chance to experience the Flam Railway, which will bring you up into and throughout Flam down to Myrtle over, and of course into Oslo. By the way, if you look at the map itself, all the dotted lines, folks, that just represents the trains, all right? The number 1 or the number 2, and you see in a little round circle, that just tells you how many nights that you're in each of the different cities, which again, you can always add on extra days. But here's just a little example of some of the beauty just waiting for you in Norway. Obviously, not only on the railway, but also along the Norwegian fjords, one of the most scenic areas in the world, let alone in Europe. Now, that happens to be just Norway, but many of our packages include multiple countries, multiple trains. Here's an example of that. How about our London, Paris, and Bordeaux? This is great because you get 2 fantastic cities. Between London and Paris, you have the Eurostar train, which again is one of those high-speed trains going over 320 kilometers per hour. But then you go into the heart, the wine region of France, which is fantastic. In fact, little fun trivia for all of you. In Bordeaux, they estimate about 960 million bottles of wine are produced annually. Imagine that. So if we have any wine lovers, Narelle, on today's presentation, I think this might be a great trip to consider. Also, again, not only do we include the rail, the hotels, but we're going to include hop on, hop off sightseeing tours, such as in London. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, Jim, what is a hop on, hop off sightseeing tour? To me, it's like the best type of way to see many of these major cities, okay? Unlike your traditional guided bus tour where 7 a.m. you're departing, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. you're sightseeing, 12 to 2 you have lunch, then from 2 to 5 you're going to do more sightseeing, then at 7 p.m. you have dinner. Everything is very regimented and structured. With hop on, hop off tour, it may be a full day in London where you can get on and off wherever the sightseeing tour takes you. But here's the best part: stay as long or as short as you would like, okay? That's the beauty when it comes to independent rail holidays, which is exactly what we offer around not only Europe, but around the world. Here's another great package to consider too that also includes multiple countries, but in this case, it's France and Germany. So we go from Paris, okay, travel down into Munich, where we spend a few nights, and then it's north up into Berlin. Now, if you look on this package on the right-hand side, some of our packages, you could tell, some of our rail holidays, they're already priced in first class rail. So in some cases, our holidays already include first class or may include business class. So just take a look at that. You can visit that on our website, or really the best way is just to give our Sydney office a ring or reach out to your local travel advisor who can give you some suggestions as well. Obviously, in Munich, home of Oktoberfest, and Berlin, lots of history here as well. So again, just a fantastic trip to consider. And one of the last European rail holidays that's trending for us for the fall of this year as well as next year is our Andalusian Explorer. And of course, includes one of my favorite cities in the world, Madrid, known as the financial center of Spain. Great restaurants, great nightlife, of course, as well as Sevilla, Cordoba, Granada. So 2 nights in each of these fantastic cities. And again, if you want to add nights or take out nights or add extra stops, you can do that as well. But lots to see and do here on this uh, tour in the country of Spain. Now, I did want to just touch real quick on really what does it mean to customize any rail holiday. So let me just give you an example. Let's say you're looking at a trip that includes Paris. Well, if you look at the map all the way to the left-hand side, some of you may want to add on any additional destination. Okay, so let's say from Paris you want to go to Barcelona, you could do that. Maybe you want to take a round trip journey from a particular city where coming in from either Sydney, Melbourne, or New Zealand, maybe it's easier. You want to fly in and out of the same great city in Europe. You can do that and take a round trip journey. You can book a rail holiday also in reverse. Okay, so if it ends in one city, well, you could start in that city instead of ending there. So we have packages all put together in Rail Holidays, already put together, but again, any of them can be customized or tailor-made the way you would like. Now, this is one of my favorite pictures in today's entire presentation, okay? Why take the train? Well, take a look, everybody, at the picture on the left-hand side, right? This is what it would pretty much typically look like traveling on a motor coach style bus tour, right? You can kind of see the seating arrangements. Now take a look at what it looks like on the right-hand side, which, by the way, this is in first class on the Glacier Express train. Here's the question I ask everybody, every presentation I do anywhere in the world, whether it's Australians, New Zealanders, Canadians, Americans, European. Here's my question, all of you. What seat would you prefer to be in? Remember what I mentioned about one of our travelers years ago. People will never remember what they spent, even if it's a little bit of an extra cost to upgrade, because you'll have that much better and that much more memorable experience. My guess is many of you would choose the seating on the right-hand side, which is, again, first class on Glacier Express. All right, now let's move over into Canada. And just like it says at the top, Canada by train made easy. Folks, we are the national tour operator for Via Rail, which is the national train of Canada. So if you take a look at this map, everyone, as you can see, the train goes not only from Vancouver, it goes all the way to Toronto, all the way up to Halifax. Or you could start in Eastern Canada and head west. It can go in either direction. Let me kind of give you an example of one of our rail holidays that's popular, that is trending as well. And folks are booking, Australians as well as New Zealanders are booking with us. This is our Western Canadian rail journey, where, of course, coming in from Australia or New Zealand, it's a nice flight into Vancouver, where you could see you spend 2 nights. Then from there, you actually have a great experience because you get a chance to travel overnight on board Via Rail. All right, and I'm going to show you some pictures in just a minute of what it is like on board the train. Then you spend 2 nights in Jasper, and then 2 nights on board the train again before the last evening in Winnipeg. Now, some of you may be thinking, okay, well, Jim, I'm coming all the way from Australia, New Zealand. I want to go all the way to Toronto or Halifax, okay? We absolutely can do that, all right? Any trip can go across Canada. Also, hotels, as I mentioned earlier, we have 3, 4, 5-star, 5-diamond hotels. As an example, out in the Canadian Rockies, everyone, many of the hotels that you can book right through our Sydney office or through your local travel advisor, we use the Jasper Park Lodge, the Banff Springs Hotel, just as an example to name a couple iconic hotel chains. Now, here's just an example of the Sky Dome car on board Via Rail, otherwise known as the Canadian, on the left-hand side. We also include a Malign Lake cruise, which is really a nice treat for everyone. But let me kind of give you an overview on Via Rail and on board the Canadian, okay? So obviously every train has its kind of standard coach economy seating. However, I will say most folks coming from Australia, many of you are booking into sleepers. So the first level is called berths. This is what you're looking at right here. Bunk bed style, nothing fancy, but it has a large heavy curtain that can close in the evenings to give you privacy. However, the most popular category that folks are booking, all right, coming into Canada, is either cabins for one. So for any of you joining Narelle and I that are traveling single or solo travelers, we have you covered. We have cabins for one available, which, by the way, cabins for one and cabins for two, which you'll see right here, has its own private toilet and vanity inside the room. Okay, so onboard via rail inside a cabin for one or a cabin for two. You have your own private toilet, uh, washroom, okay, vanity inside the room. Now, right down the hall, you'd have what we call a private yet shared shower. So the only people that can use the showers are people in cabins for one, cabins for two, as well as the next category, if they choose, as well as berths. This is called our prestige class. This is the most upscale category of class available on board Via Rail. It is absolutely fantastic. So if any of you are dreaming about going on the Rocky Mountaineer, well, this would be a similar comparison as far as quality. Some of you also, which we can easily book, you could do the Rocky Mountaineer through Railbookers from Vancouver out to Jasper, and then you can board on the Canadian on board Via Rail and travel on prestige class in this class of service from Jasper out to Toronto, where then you could fly back to Australia, New Zealand if you prefer. Now, this category is fantastic, folks, because up in the top right-hand corner, it's almost like its own private section on board the train. All right, you have your own little lounge car. The top left-hand corner, this is going to be a queen size bed, lower bed. So there's no bunk bed style bed. All right. Inside prestige class, you do have your own private toilet, shower, and vanity. Bottom right-hand corner, that's a picture inside of the kitchen, and then bottom left-hand corner, your own little seating area. And again, you do have your own private butler as well. So this is really that 4.5 to 5 star experience. 5 star being the best that is available on board via rail, which is the most similar to a Rocky Mountaineer experience, where again, you have that option as well. Now, regardless what category that you're in on board, as long as you're in a sleeper, whether it's berths, cabin for one, cabin for two, or prestige class, all your meals will be included, folks, from the city you depart from until the city you arrive in, which is fantastic. Now, what I always like to say is wherever you're traveling throughout Canada, the meals, the cuisine will reflect where you are in Canada. So when you're in Vancouver, you'll have more seafood options on board the train. However, when you're traveling through the Canadian Rockies, the prairies, the mountainside, it'll be food such as lamb, bison, elk, all right, some of that iconic local cuisine. And of course, we do have standard traditional meals available. If anybody has any dietary requests, you just let any of our staff know right there at our local Sydney office, as well as and or your local travel advisor. Now, the last portion of today's presentation is talking about America, folks, where I am. So again, I hope you enjoyed the accent as much as I love talking to all my friends in Australia and New Zealand. Here is the Amtrak Vacation System map. Here's something I want to share with all of you. Do you know last year alone, over 31 million people traveled on board Amtrak. In fact, if Amtrak was an airline, it would be the 5th largest airline in the United States. Interestingly enough, the train goes to 46 out of the 48 states within the continental United States, with the exception of South Dakota, Wyoming, and of course, Alaska and Hawaii. There's over 500 stations that you can also stop and or start any of your rail holidays. Let me move into the last two most popular rail holidays trending from Australia that folks are booking with us, okay? First one, jazz, blues, and rock and roll. One of my absolute favorite, all right? 2 nights in Chicago. You have an overnight on board the train known as the City of New Orleans, 2 nights in Memphis, and then the last few nights in New Orleans. Now, to me, not only do you get the music, the different types of music, jazz, blues, rock and roll, but let's not forget New Orleans, all right, known for its great cuisine, jambalaya, Cajun style food, all right, bananas Foster. There's all different unique delicacies of cuisine. Definitely has a very strong Spanish and French influence within not only its cuisine, but also its architecture. Chicago, one of my favorite cities as well. Why not take in a great American pastime sport of baseball? You have Wrigley Field. You also have deep dish pizza, right? If you're like me, folks, I love experiencing the local cuisine. Just like Darrell was joking about at the beginning of today's presentation. When I'm in Australia, I gotta have the iced coffee because I never get ice cream in any iced coffee anywhere in the world, right? So it's, when you're there, you got to experience it. And certainly we have some great areas throughout America that has great cuisine. Now, for those of you that are coming over and want to see as much as you can, how about considering our great American majestic landscapes? Starting in San Francisco, which of course is a nice direct flight coming in from Australia or New Zealand. You spend 2 nights there. Then you have an overnight on board the train known as the California Zephyr, which is fantastic. It literally slices in and out of the mountains, okay, through the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. 2 nights in Denver. Then you have another overnight over to Chicago where you spend 2 nights before ending in New York City. And again, some of you may say, okay, I want to start in New York City and end in San Francisco. Or maybe I want to stop in Salt Lake City along the journey. Okay. Again, we can go in reverse. We can add extra cities and truly create the perfect rail holiday for each and every one of you. And there's just an example of the trains that you would get an opportunity to travel on. That's the California Zephyr, which all our trains in the Western United States, pretty much from California to Chicago, they're known as superliner trains, so double-decker trains, very, very large trains. Let's take a look at the onboard accommodations. And similar to Via Rail, folks, we're always going to recommend sleepers, especially when you're overnighting on the train. Just like we would if you're traveling to Europe, we recommend business or first class. However, most of the trains in Europe are pretty much trains during the day, whereas throughout Canada and the US, because they're much larger countries, many of the train routes are overnight. Now, I want to mention this right here. Roomettes, these are our most popular and our most affordable. Our most popular and our most affordable category on board the trains. All right. As you can see, bunk bed style, nothing fancy, but very comfortable, very spacious. You do get meals included when you also are in sleepers on board Amtrak Vacations, just like you do on board with Via Rail as well. Now, what we have here is we call it a private yet shared toilet and shower. So right down the hall, okay, there's toilets and showers, and the only people that can use the toilets and showers are people in sleepers. Now, you know yourselves the best. If you want your own private toilet and shower and vanity inside your room, we have you covered. That is a bedroom, which is what you're looking at here. So bunk bed style as well. However, the lower bunk bed is 1.5 times wider than the top bunk bed, so it allows room for a small child, but it does have its own private toilet and shower. Again, just like Via Rail, when you're in a sleeper, you'll also get your meals included. Now, regardless what category you're in on board the train, anybody can have access to the lounge car, which is fantastic. The same applies to the observation car, which of course, any of you that are traveling throughout some of the beautiful national parks of Western United States in America, this is where you want to be, free of charge, and you can go here throughout the days. Folks, where can you view some of these exciting trips or certainly any others? You can visit us at railbookers.com.au. What I suggest, however, is pick up that phone. That's the best way to get really the perfect rail holiday that you're looking for, or contact your local travel advisor. And again, for those of you that may have joined Norel and I a little bit later, why it is so many travelers love booking with Railbookers. Again, you can pay in Australian dollars. You can book 24 months in advance. As I mentioned, we get a very flexible booking policy. When you call, we will pick up the phone within 3 seconds. We have tons of bucket list experiences. Again, freedom and flexibility, multiple trains, multiple departures. It's really the scenic way to travel anywhere in the world. And you also can get up, walk around, stretch your legs, and just know all itineraries are customizable. Before I open it up to any questions any of you may have, I did want to mention something that we're really proud of, and I know Norel is over in our Sydney office, and that is we are proud to say we won Rail Operator of the Year at the Travel Awards, which is really a prestigious award ceremony that we were recognized in. We also were featured on the front cover of Travel Age West magazine, which is out in the Los Angeles, California area, but we've been included and featured in some of the major travel and trade publications around the world. So something we're very proud of. And again, whether it's all throughout Europe, all throughout Canada or America, between all our three brands with Yankee Leisure Group, we have you covered. So I see we had a couple questions that have come in, which is great. So I'm going to turn it back over to Narelle in just a little bit. But before I do, we actually just had one question for each and every one of you. So on the right-hand side, folks, in the question box, okay, please feel free to type in, what destinations are you currently interested in? What rail holidays are you thinking about? So I'll give you about 30 seconds to a minute or so. Feel free to type in, folks, on the right-hand side in your question box, which rail holidays are you interested in and when? Are you thinking of the fall of this year? Are you thinking 2021? Are you thinking now, over the next few months? Feel free to type it. Oh, I'm already getting I'm already getting some responses, Narelle. Okay, yes. So national parks, Canadian Rockies. Okay, fantastic. Yep. Okay, Europe. Yep. June 2021. Fantastic. Yep. September of this year. New York City, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Keep them coming, everyone. Fantastic. Yeah. So there's definitely lots of great rail holidays to choose from. And again, as I mentioned, we have rail holidays all put together, but any of them can be tailor-made or customized just the way you would like. So before I turn it back over to Narelle, folks, I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I promised we'd keep it short and sweet. As I mentioned, I see we do have a couple questions. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it back over to Narelle to help answer last couple questions over here, and then we'll wrap it up for everyone. All right. So back to you, Narelle.
Oh, thank you so much, Jim. So I'll just tackle a couple of these questions here that we received. And one of them is, how often are our departures? Well, that's all part of being a fully flexible itinerary. If the train goes, we're going to go there. The day the train leaves, we can be on it. So it's everyday departures. We're not held. So that actually ties into another question that somebody has asked is, do we also book air? Out of this office, we do not book air, but that's because we may be a much smaller itinerary of a much smaller piece of a larger itinerary, or someone might be wanting to go to different destinations, visit friends and family before then embarking on their holiday portion of their trip. Another reason not to book air is there's so much airline loyalty out there. That way you can choose the airline that you feel is best for you. And some people might go through Asia out of this region, or others might go through Dubai. So always discuss those options there with your fantastic travel agent. We do work with all travel agents in Australia, so feel free to take a brochure in. That's another thing as well. Please call the phones, and we'll be more than happy to get a brochure in the post to you. There's pretty much, you should be able to get straight through to a consultant, and then you can start looking at your next rail holiday, I guess, and tick off some of those bucket list items. Oh, Jim, I've got another one. I'll just wait for this one to finish coming through. What is the upfront cost? How much do they need to pay? That is an excellent question. It is only $250 to deposit your trip. So even if you're looking for a trip in 2 years' time, 24 months in advance, $250 is all it is to lock it in at that rate. So we always know the further you book out, generally the cheaper and the more appealing the price may be. So $250, and yes, we can always tweak those dates if things change on your end, or you know, your air may change, but locking it in at the cheapest rate available is my recommendation, and that's, yeah, only $250 there per person. Sorry, per person. Jim, can you see any more questions coming through on your end? I think I've covered all of mine that have come through to me.
Yep, I think we got it. I just wanted to say
Excellent.
more than anything, everyone, and well, first and foremost, thank you, Narelle, for having me as your
Thank
guest
you.
speaker. Yeah, it's always a pleasure. Love being in Australia. I've had the pleasure of traveling there many times, and can't wait to get my next iced coffee again. It's never, all my iced coffees have never been the same after I've traveled to Australia. But folks, definitely, give us a ring, contact your local travel advisor, and we'd love to help you any way we can. We had a fantastic turnout for both of our presentations today. So very happy to share some of the great rail holidays that are booking now as we speak. So really, on behalf of myself and Railbookers and Amtrak Vacations, I just wanted to say thank you all so much, and thank you, Narelle, again for having me. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the week. All right.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Jim.
much.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.